We are back. Hoops from Nedick. I'm Ralph Tyko. Privileged to have Alan Blumkin and Hal Bock with us. Gentlemen.
Yeah, how are you?
Mr. Blumkin?
Ready to go.
All right, Hal and Alan, we are. The topic for today is Mr. Wooden and his zillion championships at U.C.L.A. What I'd like to know from one of you gentlemen, do you remember Mr. Wooden and his coaching before Kareem? Was he considered to be a great coach? Was UCLA
they first came into prominence when they made the semis in 1962. They were beaten in the semis by 2 points by Cincinnati, who the next day went on to beat Ohio State for their second championship. And they won for the first time in 63-64 with Walt Hazzard and Gail Goodrich as the guard. They won the national championship without a starting player on the team being over 6'5".
Wow.
They beat Duke, who had a tremendous advantage in height. And I used to listen to the whole tournament basically on the radio in Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh was great for picking up out-of-town stations. And that team would go on. You'd think that they were dead. They'd go on for runs in the second half where they outscored they outscored Duke in the final in one stretch 16-0. And went from 3 points down to 13 points ahead. And they essentially with the same team, they repeated the next year with beating Michigan in the final with Cassie Russell fairly easily.
Well, and this is all before Kareem.
Yeah, this is 2 years before Kareem. And then in 66, there was the starting Texas Western upset over Kentucky. 67 was the first year of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, then known as Lou Alcindor.
Can you tell me something about Hal, about the recruiting process? Was Kareem set to go to St. John's?
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about that, Ralph. They thought he was going to stay home and go to St. John's. And I think it was at the last minute that he decided to go out west, and the rest is history with UCLA. They changed the rules because of Kareem. They took away the dunk. He was so tall and so athletic, and he would dunk routinely on these smaller guys. So they finally changed the rules out there in the NCAA because of his proficiency. So he was special right from the start.
That reminds me of how the NBA changed the rules in favor of, I don't know if it was in favor of, but for Wilt, because of Wilt. With the lanes, they modified the 3-second lanes.
Right, they did. They
put the 3-second lane in because of George Mikan, who would stand there like
But I think they expanded it when Wilt came. I think it was smaller.
The original rule was put in, because of George Mikan, because he would get under the basket and just stand there.
Right. Right. Well, Kareem was not that. Kareem would go way out and take that fade, that over the
sky hook.
Sky hook. That's what.
Yeah, an excellent back court man by the name of Lucius Allen.
Yes.
He was there all 3 years and had a fairly decent NBA career, mostly with Milwaukee.
Right. An Indiana kid, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Lucius Allen. And that was a big surprise, too. He went to UCLA instead of Indiana, I can remember. Wooden had something going for him. Any of you guys know, give me an insight as to his personality, what made him tick? He was genuine, wasn't he?
He was a gentleman. He's soft-spoken. He sat there with a program rolled up in his hand from start to finish. Sort of like Connie Mack in baseball,
or lap check,
that's right. And he was a gentleman. He was always available to the press. He couldn't have been nicer. And I had a couple of interviews with him later in his life, and he was just marvelous. just a godsend for the writers, I think.
He couldn't have had many regrets, given everything.
Well, 12 championships and 7 in a row. No other team has won more than 2 in a row, so that's a pretty good track record.
Not bad
to achieve.
The only one who even came close was Ed Jucker in Cincinnati. They won 2 straight, and then they wound up losing the third one to Loyola Chicago in overtime. That's the only one who's even come near to what Wooden accomplished. And the impact that he had on his players was enormous. You talk to Bill Walton even today, years and years later, and Walton just swore by Coach Wooden. He would go to see him all the time in his retirement, even after he finished his pro career. And he carried around the coach's pyramid of success. You know about that. Coach Wooden had rules, and he had a whole chart of success, pyramid of success, he called it, and he carried it with him all the time, and so did Walton. He had a tremendous impact on his team, on his players. They all loved him.
Specifically on Walton, when he came in, he was in a different era, kind of a hippie kind of era, if you will. We're exactly the same age, so I know the years Kareem and I are the same age, but he was kind of tamed by Wooden. Walton was. Am I correct?
Yes. Wooden threw him out of practice once. He said, if that's the way you're going to be, you're not on this team anymore. Go find some other team. And that had a tremendous impact on Walton, and Walton came back contrite, and the rest is history.
I think the greatest coaching job that he did during that whole period was the 3 years between Kareem and Walton, because they won 3 in a row with Curtis Rowe and
Sidney Wicks
and
Sidney Wicks,
Patterson, and right now Steve Patterson was the center, and
He was fairly mediocre if you compare him to
Henry
Kareem
Bibby. Henry Bibby was another backcourt man.
Another backcourt man.
They won 3 in a row without the real dominating center because they played so disciplined. And John Wooden was an All-American basketball player at Purdue, I think in the early 40s. Of course, that was back in the Jurassic era for basketball. But
he was the first man to go into the Hall of Fame, both as a player and as a coach. That's a pretty remarkable achievement. It's only been done 3 or 4 other times.
Yeah, Henry Bibby is a guy we should have talked about last week when we talked about New York City High School. He was 2 or 3 brothers. One Bibby was a Pittsburgh Pirate.
Jim Bibby,
Jim Bibby,
especially for Texas and the Pirates.
Right.
And his son Mike Bibby played in the NBA.
Whose son?
Henry's son.
Henry's son. Oh,
Mike
okay.
Played for.
He was pretty good. Mike Bibby was pretty good.
He played for a number of years, primarily I think with the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah.
Right.
But none of those guys, Rowe and Wicks, were not sensational pros. I mean, they were decent, but they weren't sensational. So he took this group and was able to mold them into a team that. As I said, without a dominating center that won 3 straight NCAAs.
Right. Patterson was a good college center.
Yeah. And
played a little in the pros, if I remember correctly, but not great. Not like those 2.
They would blow out the teams in the finals. I mean, most of the finals that they had, from the 1963-64 team on down, most of them weren't close.
Right. How did he recruit Wooden? Did he have assistant coaches do it, or was it one-on-one? Did he see somebody and want them, follow them for years? What was his MO?
Well, I think he did a personal job on Lou Alcindor, later to be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because Jabbar was very close to staying at St. John's, staying in New York and going to St. John's, and Wooden, Wooden came in and talked him into going to the 3,000 miles away. And I think Kareem was an only child, which was another issue, leaving home and leaving your parents at that age
had
to go
to be
3,000
very
miles
scary.
away.
Had to be very scary. I
Sure.
remember hearing about they gave him a part-time job because athletes had to work and this, that, and the other thing. And he had to make sure that the automatic sprinkler system was working. that was his, and reported. So that's
important.
Pardon me?
That's important,
that was Kareem. Yeah. Good years. Absolutely good years.
Well, the thing what really got me is that they had a very long winning streak that was stopped by Houston in the Astrodome because
68,
74,
was playing with a
77 games.
scratched eye. Houston wound up beating them by 1 or 2 points, and they
that might have been Elvin Hayes.
Yeah, Elvin Hayes. They had to happen to meet in the semifinals of the NCAA that year, and U.C.L.A. beat them 101 to 69.
Whoa.
That was one of the few times I've ever seen a Wooden team that was really out for blood.
Whoa. What I enjoyed about Wooden's teams
up and down
is
the
keep
court,
their hands up on
humiliated
defense.
them that game.
He was very disciplined on defense. Guys keep their hands up. And I also remember they had this guy, Kenny Heights, I think was his name. He was also a tennis player.
Yeah, he played with Kareem.
He played with okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Lynn Shackelford and played with Kareem.
Mike Warren.
Kenny Heights was a tennis player.
Yeah, Mike Warren became an actor. He was the other backcourt man with Lucius.
Yes, we thought with the real unselled
Hill
like
Street Blues. He was on Hill Street Blues.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that, and that was a hell of a show, by the way.
It sure was.
That had all the aspects of reality. It just had the cop that barked. Do you remember him? I can't think of the name, but this guy was a dog nut and would bark. And the tall-legged district attorney put a little spice in there every now and again.
I think they won with, they had something like 88 straight wins.
88, you're right.
You're
right, yeah.
Yeah. Elvin Hayes was quite a pro.
Oh, yeah. He was with the Houston Rockets. It started actually in San Diego for a couple of years. The San Diego Rockets, they moved to Houston. He was home. Then they traded him to the Bullets, where he teamed up with Wes Unseld, and they won an NBA title with the Bullets.
Right.
You know the amazing thing about Coach Wooden? I was looking at his record today. He had an 808 winning percentage at U.C.L.A. 808, that's 800 out of 1,000, right?
Yeah.
His overall record was 804 because he had coached a couple of years at Indiana State before he got to U.C.L.A. His record in the postseason, he won 300 postseason games, and his record was 817. That's over 800 winning percentage in 3 different aspects. That's remarkable. That is really remarkable. That's how good a coach
remarkable. It's his winning percentage against presumably the cream of the crop is higher than it was against the teams he played in a normal year. You're not going to get the consistency of great teams to play against if under normal
every
circumstances.
time during his era that a team from the East would make that. He used to have the East-West and those East Midwest, Mid-East, Midwest, and Far West, and it was static in those years that the East would play the Mid-East in the semifinal, and the Midwest would play the West. So every time any team that would come out of the East or Mid-East to play U.C.L.A. in the finals, they were considered cannon fodder for the most part.
Right.
And even the one time that they lost with Walton, I believe that game went into overtime against North Carolina State. But
Did they have much competition in the West? In Wooden's years, or was it mostly in the tournaments?
Yeah.
I would say in the tournament. I don't think he had a lot of trouble in the West.
They had one year they beat Drake. Drake, believe it or not, was playing them. Willie McAllister took them deep, and they only won the semifinal by 5. And then they blew out whoever they were playing in the final. That was the only time I can remember them having a close game during the, that era.
You guys were back east, obviously. I was out west. What was the TV situation for college basketball?
Awful. When Loyola played Cincinnati, I drove out with 3 friends of mine. I was at Pitt at the time, to a suburb of Pittsburgh called Mount Lebanon, which would pick up the games off of West Virginia Station. West Virginia Station. Then the first year that they won was in 1964. It was SNI, the network that A. Einhorn founded. And I was still in Pittsburgh, and they showed the game in clips on tape.
Different era, different time.
They leave it for the 11 o'clock news, and they showed the second half after that was over. And then when I came home in 64, 65, one of the independent stations would pick up the SNI telecast and televise it live. And then one of the years into the Alcindor time there, one of the network, I forget what network, was televising, and they only televised one semifinal game, the Eastern game. Yeah, they televised that in the East, they televised the Western game in the West, and then they televised the final nationally. And finally, in the, I think it was the early 70s before they, they gave the whole semifinal doubleheader.
It's so ironic because
it wasn't a great setup at that point.
I was sitting here at home over the weekend getting ready for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I just scrolled through some channels looking for something to watch, and there must have been a dozen college basketball games on. Not any that were particularly of interest to the New York area, but with cable, there were games from all over the country on. And my wife's looking at me, she says, "Why are all these college basketball games on?" I said, "Because it's
351 Division I teams. I have a friend of mine that tracks, somehow manages to track all of this. And so on any given Saturday, you'll have 150 games. And you can watch a whole plethora of games from noontime when the first one starts to the Western games end at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly.
Well,
for gamblers, it's wonderful. Yeah.
Right.
But
small story about Pittsburgh radio. When I was a kid, I used to sit at my mother's radio, which was over the refrigerator, and hold on to the top of the refrigerator and listen to every game, everything going. We could pick up Pittsburgh quite easily. Bob Prince, we could pick up the games. The Giants had left, listening quite a bit. Cut to 1965. I'm about to be drafted. The war is going on, Vietnam War, police action, I think. People were dead, but it was a war. And I go out to I join the Air Force, go to California, stationed at Travis Air Force Base in a little town called Fairfield between Sacramento and San Francisco. Point being, I'm listening to my little radio when I get to California, and I hear a Pittsburgh station from California. So I figure, oh my God, I can pick up Pittsburgh. I'll easily, with a big radio, big transistor, be able to pick up New York. So I go buy the biggest transistor radio in the BX that I could afford, and I take it back to the barracks. And I do pick up Pittsburgh again, but it's Pittsburgh, California, a little town. Now, to a sports nut, there's a little town now that I'm familiar with out here. It's in Contra Costa. It's called Pittsburgh. It's near Antioch. It's got a great high school football program. It's a tremendous town, but it's not my Pittsburgh, not the Pittsburgh I expected. My disappointment, I thought, I've got it licked. I won't even miss New York. The weather's great here. I'll be able to get all the Met games, all the Yankee games.
You're all set.
And
you were all set.
I was set. I was just, but I did get Pittsburgh, California.
Oh, here I used to listen to Pirate games off WWVA in Wheeling, West Virginia. It was like 1170 because KDKA is 1020 and it's in between WINS at 1010 and whatever was 1050 at the time. Because that's changed a lot. And they're both 50,000 watts. And while I was in Pittsburgh, I could get everything but the Coast games. And I used to listen to the Cardinals off KLOS. I used to listen to Yankee games off WHAS in Rochester, New York.
When the Giants and the Dodgers
any way you can get them.
When the Dodgers and the Giants moved from New York to California, there was a New York station that picked up their games and did, on Western Union ticker.
Schenkel, Chris Schenkel. Was it Chris Schenkel who did that?
Oh, Les Kiter also. The Giant recreation.
Les Kiter. No, yes, you're right. Les Kiter.
Yeah,
Les Kiter would do the recreations.
Boy, it's windy out here in Candlestick. And ball fan. They break the ruler on the table. There's a broken bat hit. Yeah, and then if something happened with the ticker coming in, they fouled off balls for 20 minutes.
That's right.
Yeah, that was
unique.
Some hasty replacement for Jones.
That's probably how they did baseball.
I'm still Jones and the Giants and Brooklyn and New York.
That's probably how they did
rivalry
games when Reagan did them for the Cubs back in the 20s.
Yeah.
Radio first started. That's probably how they did the broadcast the games. He
called himself Dutch Reagan.
Yeah, get the wire and then recreate the games.
Yeah, such a nice, innocent man, Dutch Reagan. What he did to this country, my God. Breaking the unions for a start.
No matter how bad he may have been, this one now is going to break all records.
In a class by himself, isn't he?
Yeah.
There's no track. You can't tout the guy because he didn't run on a track. It was it's like he's an alien, and he just took over, and every day is an adventure. I wonder what happened with the if you guys are up on it, it's later in New York than it is here. What the appeals court of
they said that's coming down tomorrow.
Yeah, that decision will come down tomorrow.
Yeah,
that thing's going to wind up in the Supreme Court.
They approved the Voss today when Pence cast a tie-breaking vote. Only 2 Republicans voted against her. But anyway, getting back, I remember watching on TV Wooden's last game. They played Kentucky. And everybody knew it was John Wooden's, was retiring after that game in 1975 after that tournament. And they went out and they won it for him. They beat I think the star of Kentucky, I believe, was a player who had a fairly decent pro career, Kevin Greavy. I don't know if you remember that name.
Yeah, I remember the name.
Yeah. And they beat Kentucky, I think it was by 7 points in the final. That was Walton's last game. Walton's last game was in college,
and he retired
those
when
years freshmen couldn't compete in college. And I remember when Kareem played on the freshman team, they substantially trounced the upper class team every time they played them. but that was his last game. And everybody was, almost everybody was rooting for him, and they came through for him. He went out on top.
What I admire about Woodman is he had a wonderful relationship with his wife. I mean, they had what every man dreams of having all through his life is stability, I guess, and that was pretty cool. And he got to live a long time. He lived well into his 90s.
They would bring him.
He was 99 when he died.
Whoa, didn't know that.
Yeah, just short of his 100th birthday.
Yeah, she passed a few years before he did. They would bring him to U.C.L.A. They would, as long as he was able, they would bring him to the NCAA tournaments. Just as a very, very honored guest.
Yeah.
He had a lot of sayings, and the favorite that I heard, one of his sayings, my favorite, was "Be quick, but don't hurry." And apparently that made an impact with his players. They figured it out. Be quick, but don't hurry.
Right. And of course,
it's almost a yogiism.
Yeah, exactly.
He coached before they put the clock in, so we've been interested to see what he would have done with the with the 30-second clock.
30 seconds, right?
45 seconds.
He didn't play with that at all, did he?
No. They put that in until after Villanova beat Georgetown. They didn't put that in until about 9-10 years later.
Was that the real low-scoring game?
Yeah.
You talked about last week?
Low-scoring game.
Yeah, the one where they beat Ewing.
That was a perfect game. Villanova threw a perfect game.
That was unbelievable, that game.
Right. Raleigh Massimino.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's back in the day when the first person you'd mention was the coach. When you're talking about a college team. No matter, even they have superstars, this, that, and the other thing. The coach got the respect of being the first one. It's the coaches' team. It's coaches. Now it's a player league more than anything. What do you think of the one and out, that kind of thing in college basketball, guys?
Oh, I hate it.
Does it just become, you play 1 year and then
one and done, yeah.
One and done.
Constitutionally, as they proved with Spencer Hayward way back when, that the draft in both any sport is illegal. Because basically you're depriving somebody of earning a living at a certain age, and going where he wants to go.
Right. It's his right, but it just seems to make college basketball almost semi-pro.
And pro football will do anything to accommodate the colleges, because the colleges essentially provide a free farm system for them.
Right.
It's not like baseball, where in football and basketball you don't spend 5 years, 4 or 5 years in the minor leagues developing skills before you're ready for the big leagues. It's not like that. But and a lot, probably a bunch of these kids who go one and done. I'm not saying all of them. Basically, don't belong there in the first place. They're there to play basketball. Yeah, some Ohio State football player last year was quoted, just classes. I'm not here to go to classes. I'm here to play football.
Well,
Syracuse,
I don't know
basketball.
If you and I
recruited a kid,
Alan.
Recruited a hotshot kid from the Bronx named Chris McCullough, and he played, I think, 13 games, and he tore up his knee. So he's sidelined. He plays 13 games, and they need the class for the pros. And now he sits on the bench with the Brooklyn Nets. Well, what
that's
was
the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah. What's that?
That's the bottom of the barrel in the NBA.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
that is really
the Nets themselves, or
because like that, they've won 9 games. They're getting blown out again tonight by the Hornets, who haven't been able to beat anybody lately. And they're 9-42 going into tonight. They're just brutal.
Yeah.
But I keep hearing that they have a lot of young talent on that team. It's going to mature. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to be able to analyze it that way.
No, they don't have much of anything. And the other
Jason Kidd's not still coaching them.
No, he's coaching the Bucks.
Oh, okay. Who's coaching the Nets?
Yeah,
Kenny Atkinson.
And the Knicks were, it was in the paper yesterday. The Knicks came out with an attitude playing the Lakers, who were not very good this year. And the Knicks most of the time, didn't even try. They got blown up by the Lakers in the Garden.
The Nets have the worst record in the NBA since Christmas. You know who has the second worst record in the NBA since Christmas?
The Knicks.
Correct.
Yeah.
I would have guessed that too. Yes.
And that's 30 teams? That's pretty hard to do.
Yeah. Knicks were 14-11 at one point this year. And
anything coming up in the draft? Anybody coming up that might help those two teams?
Doesn't matter.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think the Nets still owe the Celtics for.
The Celtics get the Nets pick.
Pierce and Garnett.
Well, that clever trade that they got Pierce and Garnett.
I think they still owe them a couple of number ones. Yeah,
next year as well.
Yeah, and the Knicks, Phil Jackson is so damn dysfunctional. That team is so damn dysfunctional that again, he was disrespecting Carmelo Anthony, not a team player, not this, not that. And meanwhile, since he's been there, the team has only gotten marginally better. And who knows to say who they're going to pick? Because their history of draft choices isn't very good. History. The whole history of draft choices in the Knicks are not very good.
Here's a question for you guys to consider: Howard wouldn't have done coaching in the pros.
I think had he come in at that particular time he's having success.
But not now.
I don't know. Not now. You can. I think that Eddie. I think that, the old baseball managers like Casey Stengel couldn't handle the way it is now. And
but guys, what made these coaches great in their time is what would make them great today. They would have adjusted. I think they're great coaches.
If he came in to the NBA when he was during his peak years at U.C.L.A., I think he would have been successful because you had guys who were willing to play team.
Right. Like the Knicks and Holtzman and those guys.
Yeah, like the Knicks and Holtzman, like the old Celtics all the time, because Auerbach was essentially, the version of Wooden in the NBA. I mean, Auerbach had a very, very abrasive personality, but he got, plenty of players to sublimate their games, for their whole good.
Right.
Yeah, you can get away with that today.
Anybody who acted up, he would get rid of. He wouldn't tolerate it. All the ones like Vince Lombardi, all the ones from that era wouldn't tolerate a lot of the nonsense that goes on now.
Right.
It's a whole different world. Players are in command. The Yankees today made one of the dumbest signings that they've made in years. They signed this first baseman, Chris Carter.
I know him from the A's. Yeah.
No, he was from the
Milwaukee.
And then
but he came up with the A's originally. He was a big prospect with the A's.
He had 41 home runs last season.
He
struck out 225 times.
I looked his lifetime record up because somebody posted this today. I went to reference.com and looked it up. 499 hits, 875 strikeouts. 5
That's
years.
2 strikeouts for every 1 hit.
Yeah. So I put down. I put down on one of the Yankee sites. I said, "This is a terrible signing." I said, "If you're looking for a guy to hit 220 and strike out 200 times, he's your man." I also said, one of the big problems with signing guys like this is you're tempted to play them. So I said, "Oh, he'll be a great right in the DH." Blah blah blah. I said, "The guy swings at anything. He's terrible." They're saying on the radio the guy can't field at first base either.
Other than that,
yes.
Other than that, yeah.
That was the play, Mr.
Like the Diamondbacks with Shelby Miller.
Yeah,
the guy gets $4.7 million for 3-12 and a 6+ ERA last year. And he took them for Arb over this.
I should have been a pitcher.
He's awful. He's 9.29 his last 2 years.
Hal, you could have been a contender.
I know, yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, he could have. This guy, says, well, he has potential. All I know is every time the guy goes out there, he finds a way to lose.
And my problem, Ralph, is I wound up on the waterfront, right?
Yeah.
Stella.
Now, I don't know what you guys figure. When I figure pitchers, that do well for bad teams, they go to good teams, and everybody thinks all of a sudden it's going to translate into good record with a good team, and 99 times out of 100 it doesn't.
Yeah, I think signing pitching is absurd to me. Long-term contracts to pitchers in today's day and age.
Yeah, I mean, the Shelby Miller came in with this demand, I'd tell him to, I'm not paying you anything. Go take a walk somewhere. We can get anybody to go 3-12 with a 6-something ERA.
Okay, guys, you know how I admire true sport athletes, people with multiple skills. I sent you guys a little link. Irv Noren, a former Yankee outfielder. We talked about players that played both basketball and baseball. Irv Noren, who played with the Yankees in some of the big years in the 50s, and was a pretty decent ball player. He was a pro basketball player too before the NBA. I didn't realize that until did a little research on this subject, and so we'll give him a little kudos. He was one of my
Dick
favorite
Rote was
players.
All-American at Duke.
Dick Rote?
Yeah, he led the nation in scoring. He played half the season before he went to the Army with the Pistons.
And then he won a batting championship.
Yeah,
when he came back.
He averaged 11.9 points a game. This is pre-clock.
Right.
Then he went into the Army, and when he came out, I interviewed him in 1985. He told me that Mr. Rickey, he was still calling him Mr. Rickey at that point, said, you can't do both. And so Grote told me he brought up Gene Connolly. He says, he's a pitcher. You're going to be playing short for us 154 games, and they're going to want you to play 45 minutes a game. You can't do both. So Grote said, even though his first love was basketball, he went with baseball because that's where the money was. There's no pro basketball players outside of maybe Bob Cousy weren't making anything back then. Now, so I found in this, a couple of months after I interviewed him, I went up to Cooperstown. I found in his file, I found a box score where he got 26 points against the Knicks. So I made a copy of that, and when I sent him the thank you letter for talking to me, I had quoted that.
Nice. Somebody remembers.
And
I'll bet you, Hal, who have talked to hundreds of ball players, many of whom were retired, they do want to be remembered. They
sure.
Hunger for that. Even the ones that you wouldn't think, who are grumpy to the press, this and that, who seem to not being enjoying themselves. These fantasy camps, old-timers games and stuff.
I'll tell you a little story.
Please.
The great Frank Graham was a New York sports writer back in the 20s and before that even. And the Yankees had an outfielder named Bob Musial. Bob Musial was a nasty so-and-so. Just not a very pleasant guy to be around. And toward the end of his career, he suddenly became hail fellow, well met. And Frank Graham wrote, he learned how to say hello when it was time to say goodbye.
Oh, yes, I remember. That was about Musial. I remember that statement. There were two Musials. One was Irish Musial.
Musial and his brother Bob Musial.
Yeah, Musial.
Bob Musial was with the Yankees, and Irish Musial played for the Giants.
Yeah.
Wow.
Stengel was friendly with Irish Musial. When Stengel ran around with the Giants, played with the Giants, the two of them used to run around together. And one time...
I want you to understand, I didn't cover these guys. I just read about them.
I didn't see them either.
No, you didn't.
McGraw, Stengel said in one of his books, McGraw sent the detective to follow them, as they went out, and then Stengel went in the next day and said he was PO'd, and McGraw asked him why. He says, well, I wanted a full detective of my own. That's Casey. And I used another Casey line today, because somebody in one of the groups I'm in put up a couple of cards of Ken McKenzie, who was a pitcher on the original Mets.
Sure.
And he went to an Ivy League school.
He went to Yale.
Yale.
There's one stuff.
Okay.
This is in every Casey Stengel book I've read. That Stengel went out to the mound one time and said, just make believe you're pitching against the Harvards.
Yeah, that's right.
So I put that quote, posted that quote on that page, and it got some pretty good responses.
That 62 team had another Ivy League pitcher. Let's see if you guys can come up with the name of him.
Jay Hook?
You're right.
No, he went to Northwestern.
Well, that's close enough. That's Ivy.
Well.
Is it Ivy? Is that pretty much?
No, it's the Ivy League. It's the Ivy most academic college in the Big Ten. It's a very good school, and Stengel's comment about Jay Hook, he says, he's a major in some sort of engineering. He said he can do everything. He can do everything to describe a pitch, but he can't throw it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And after
Hal, that Graham line is going to stick with me because it transcends sports, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I've used it a few times.
Yeah, there's a similar line used that was recently used about Kurt Schilling by some writer. He said he's the only man to pitch his way into the Hall of Fame and talk his way out of it.
That's right.
I thought that was a great line.
That is a great line. But like I say, the Graham line, wow, that's going to be with me all week. I'll be thinking about that because how that applies. Jobs, relationships,
Barry Bonds
interactions.
Into a nice guy. Yeah.
Pardon me?
Barry Bonds was trying to turn himself into a nice guy.
Yeah, well, it's PR, and I think when it all comes down to it, guys like Clemens and Bonds, they're going to go, well, you got to recognize them. They played they played in their own era, noted on the plaque, note that their statistics would have to be skewed. I heard
Henry Aaron's birthday was
today.
No, it was the
yesterday.
5th.
Yesterday, okay.
5th, and Luther's the 6th, February.
So
that,
there was 3 Hall of Famers the other day. Aaron, Nolan Ryan was born the same day.
Nolan Ryan, Jackie Robinson, and Ernie Banks were all January 31st.
Oh, okay. That was it.
So there's a million Aaron posts, and a number of people commented them saying, still the true home run king. There are a lot of people who still will not, we may all be gone 50 years from now, but,
maybe.
It'll be a very long time before Bonds is recognized as the home run king because of the steroids.
No question.
Henry Aaron made a joke once, which surprised the heck out of me and almost everybody. He played golf for one of his early times he was playing golf. He said, it took me 17 years to get 3,000 hits in the majors, and it took me one day to get 3,000 hits on a golf course.
Henry Aaron did the classiest thing when Bonds, quote, broke the record. He had a message on the scoreboard accepting the fact that Bonds did it, and he mentioned nothing about the steroids. He just classed up that day quite a bit.
I use a quote from Henry Aaron a lot.
Much of a baseball executive. He was in charge of the Braves for a number of years when they were very, very mediocre. And that's something I don't understand is the hiring of coaches, managers, executives. It's I don't know what owners think sometimes in terms of do they hire people just because of their name sometimes?
Well, a lot of it is an old boys network.
Right.
It's my pal from when I played in the 3I League,
Right, exactly. Yeah. Who you make a deal with. Billy Martin was a lot like that. I remember
yes, he was.
Charlie Sylvester.
Charlie Sylvester.
Sorry.
Art Fowler went with him as a pitching coach all over. His drinking buddy.
Silvera?
Yeah. No, Art Fowler.
I don't know. Well, was he a pitching coach? Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But he went with him to Detroit. I know Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. He never got to coach with them with the Yankees.
Jim Whelan coached for La Russa in a couple of places before he became manager of the Pirates.
Yeah. Hey guys, good show again today.
Like that. And the colleges, it's even worse. In the NFL, it's even worse. The Falcons' offensive coordinator, who a lot of people were blaming for blowing the Super Bowl the other night, is the son of Mike Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan is the son of Mike Shanahan, who won.
And he's about to get the Raiders. I'm sorry, he's about to get
49ers.
He got the 49 job, and his replacement is Steve Sarkisian, who was just coming off being a one-game offensive coordinator for Alabama. Coached in was assistant coach at USC when Pete Carroll was there. And Dan Quinn, the Atlanta coach, was the defensive coordinator for Carroll up in Seattle before he came to Atlanta. So there's the connection.
Absolutely.
USC connection. Carroll calls. Quinn says, you got to take this guy, so he takes him.
Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen. This is terrific. And next week we're going to talk shooters, pure shooters. That's the topic. We'll see what we come up with. It'll be fun, I'll tell you that. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay. Ralph, I just want to know one thing. Did you do a program Sunday night?
No, we did not, because it was Super Bowl night.
All right, because I'm calling David, and we're going to discuss what we're going to do Thursday.
Okay, and I just want to ask you about Mr. Hall. Are you still hooking up with him?
Well, I'm trying to, but I can't reach him directly, so if you want to play the intermediary.
I will indeed. We had a little on-air producing for the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and again, a privilege to have Hal Bock, author. Tell me how the new book is going.
Well, its publication date is February 21st, so it's available for pre-pub sales at Amazon. It's called Banned, and it's a fun read and a fun write. Beautiful. And this is all about players who have been banned, players, coaches, managers, and what have you. Banned from baseball. Banned from baseball. So Pete Rose wasn't inventing stuff. Others No. What's your view? I mentioned that, and you just wrote the book. How do you feel about Pete Rose and his chances of getting back? And his chances of getting back are just about nil. He's had too many opportunities, and they've turned him down too many times. So I don't think he's going to get back. Should he be in the Hall of Fame? There's no question he should be in the Hall of Fame. He had 4,000 hits, and he did it clean as far as we know. So he should be in the Hall of Fame, but politics and baseball being what they are, I don't think he'll ever get in. Well, I just did an interview about a week or so ago with Joel Youngblood. And
okay, sure. who had a 14-year Major League career, mostly with the Mets and the Giants. But what was interesting, he broke in with Cincinnati and was Rose's teammate, and he played the last few games of his career with Cincinnati under Rose as a manager. So that doesn't have a whole lot of significance in the world.
He holds a very unique place in baseball history.
With those 2 home runs.
No. He's playing for the Mets, and he's playing a day game who knows where, I don't remember. Probably in Chicago. And in the third or fourth inning, the Mets trade him to the Phillies, and he's playing they're playing a night game. So he gets on an airplane, and he flies to Philadelphia from Chicago. It's a short flight. And he played for the Mets in the afternoon and for the Phillies at night. 2 teams, one day.
It was in Philadelphia. I think he played for Montreal, and he hit 2 home runs. He hit 1 with each team.
There you go.
So, but we mentioned Pete Rose, and isn't sports amazing how you can talk about one thing and just segue into something else, and it's just
we could be here all night.
Going.
Yeah, they have incredible.
I'm going to ask both of you individually because if it weren't sports, what would be your passion in life? Both of you are well-rounded enough to have other. I know with Alan, it's history and
movies.
Oh, really?
I would have to agree with that. I love movies and I love history.
Beautiful. And, somebody once said that to know American history, you have to know baseball because they're so intertwined. And so I can see that. But would you, if it weren't for sports, I don't think one could work up the passion that we 3 do and many, many more like us.
Well, to paraphrase Karl Marx, in this country, sports is the opiate of the masses.
Right. Well, he said that about religion, if I'm not mistaken. It is indeed. It's my opiate. At least one of them, for crying out loud.
There's still a tremendous number of people who want to make the Monday after the Super Bowl a national holiday.
Right. Well, that's all people are talking about on Monday. So, hey, thanks, guys. Everybody out there, it's a privilege to be able to talk to these 2, and I hope you're enjoying it. This is our
I
third
just
or
want to
fourth
tell
time.
Hal not to shovel too hard.
No, don't worry.
Don't joke about that, guy, about the shoveling.
It's not a joke.
Yeah. Hal, if you're
even
thinking about it, it ain't worth it.
No, I know it. I got somebody who comes here and does it for me.
Okay, good. Glad to hear that.
Good. Get through this, guys, and stock up, and we'll be back same time, same bat channel. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, same bat channel, same bat station.
Beautiful.
Same bat time.
See you guys next week. Hal, again, thank you. Alan,
okay.
Next week, everybody out there, keep on. And
take care.
Take care, gentlemen.
Bye-bye.
Bye.